Damon West, this is going to be fun. And I have to start here. I'm kind of wondering if maybe we're related. My maiden name is West.
No way.
Yes. So I was Molly West forever. And then, so yeah, man, I mean, I don't know. I've never, done anything crazy in Texas. So I'm not really sure that we are, but,
where are you from?
Yeah.
Where's your family from?
Michigan.
Okay. So
grew up in Michigan and, so talk
my
to
dad
me.
was from Missouri and his family was from Mississippi. That his father's family all came to Missouri from Mississippi. So it sounds like you're on the other side of the country, though. But, I mean, I think we're all probably related in one way or another, right? Molly West, that's 100%. A cool ring to it. Like,
My husband and I have been married for 25 years, and I'm really glad that I took his name, and all of our family has the same last name. But it was hard to let go of, man. It's a fun name. So, anyway, I knew you were cool when I heard that. But, Damon, I want to dig in, star athlete. Everything's going for you. And then it wasn't. Get me inside of that.
Yeah, I guess the best place to begin this thing is I was in prison serving a life sentence for engaging in organized crime. I was the ringleader of a bunch of other meth addicts breaking into people's houses from 2005 to 2008. And a jury in Dallas gave me life in prison for RICO. I was the mastermind of the organized crime ring. I was the boss. In 2015, in a Texas prison, I come up for parole for the first time. Now, you're probably thinking, if you got sentenced to life, how do you come up for parole in 7 years? But it's because none of my crimes are violent crimes, Molly. I'm not a violent offender.
Mm-hmm.
I was a drug addict breaking into people's homes, but no one was ever home. I made sure of it. I mean, I went through elaborate details. I stole a mailman's outfit from a post office, one of my first burglaries I ever did, just so I could walk around and find out who's home, who's not. I didn't want to go into someone's home if they weren't home. If they were at home.
Yeah.
But this lady from parole comes to interview me. And I'm up for parole. And she's like, she brings me in the office in 2015. And I'm sitting there. She's got my criminal file in front of her. It's called your jacket. My jacket's about an inch thick. It's everything about you, Molly. It's all your bio, your crimes, your arrest. And she's flipping through the page of this jacket for about 20 seconds. And she slams the file shut. She pushed it away. She said, Mr. West, I came here today to ask you one question for your parole hearing. This is going to be a one-question test, Mr. West. And the answer to my question is going to determine whether or not you go home or you stay in this prison. But the answer to my question, it's not in that file about the guy I'm reading about who committed all those crimes. And she said, we don't see a lot of Damon West come through the criminal justice system because you had it all, Mr. West. You had every advantage, every privilege, every opportunity over everybody else. She said, you're the definition of a privileged person in this country. And Molly, she read that file pretty well, too. She had me dead to rights. I grew up in this little southeast Texas town called Port Arthur, Texas. Port Arthur is down where Louisiana and Texas touch on the Gulf Coast. Little blue-collar town, little refinery town. Mm-hmm. Came from a great family, Molly. My mom was a school teacher and a nurse. My dad was a sports writer. My dad made history in 1971. He was the first sports writer in southeast Texas to put black athletes on the front page of sports pages. 71, Molly, the first time it ever happened. And my dad puts a black running back from Lincoln High School named Joe Washington Jr. Now, Joe Washington Jr. would go on to play for the Oklahoma Sooners, the Baltimore Colts, the Washington Redskins. But when my dad put Joe Washington Jr. on the front page of the sports page in 71, people lost their minds about that in the South. They would break my dad's windows and slit his tires. They'd send hate mail to him. So when I was a little boy growing up, my dad makes me read the hate mail. He wants me to understand what it looks like to take a stand and do the right thing. And he's telling me, sometimes in life, taking a stand and doing the right thing means you're going to stand alone. But he said it's always okay to stand alone as long as you're standing on the right side of history. He's a tremendous influence in my life. And I was a good student growing up, but I was a great athlete. This is Texas, man. Texas high school football, Friday night lights. I'm the star quarterback in the town. You can imagine. I mean, it's one of those stories like you see on TV, a 3-year starting quarterback, the stud quarterback, scholarship to play ball at the University of North Texas, Division I college football. And honestly, Molly, one of the reasons why I've always followed your journey is because my life plan, what I wanted to do, play sports and become a sports agent. I wanted to be Jerry Maguire before there was even a movie called Jerry Maguire. And you became the female Jerry Maguire. But life has a way of giving us these days that I call fork in the roads. And then my fork in the road happened against Texas A&M on September 21st, 96. We were playing the Aggies, and I go down on the third play of the game, and my career is over. And I get up to this fork in the road in life, and, it wasn't just my football career I lost that day. It was my identity. I'd put so much stock in being a football player that I lost myself along the way. And that's when I got into drugs, cocaine, ecstasy, pills. But I'm functional as an addict, and I graduate college. I go off to work in Washington, D.C. and United States Congress. Then I come back to Dallas to be a stockbroker for one of the biggest Wall Street banks in the world. And it was at that job as a stockbroker in 2004, Molly, that my life and the lives of so many other innocent people would forever be changed when another broker introduced me to methamphetamines one day. And, it was a fast slide after that, Molly. 18 months later, I was homeless, and then I was breaking into people's houses. And, when I broke into people's houses, Molly, my victims, I didn't just steal their property. I stole their sense of security. And I don't know if they'll ever get that back. But after 3 years of committing crimes against the people of Dallas, a Dallas SWAT team raided the apartment I was in on July 30th, 2008, and put an end to the Uptown burglaries. So that is how I ended up in a jail cell in Dallas County.
Well, and I mean, life sentence. Wow. And you have all of these expectations of being a stud quarterback. Probably every guy thinks they're going to the NFL, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that was something inside
Even
of
though
your...
I was 5'10", yeah, I still thought I'd be the one, right?
Get me inside of your emotions, Damon, when you hear a life sentence.
Oh, wow. That's a good question, Molly. Whenever my trial happened, first of all, they got me to trial 10 months after my arrest. I'm in a courtroom, and that's called the rocket docket. And if they want you, and if they get you in 10 months in a trial, trials are big machines. They got to do a lot of things to prep for a trial. But 10 months after my arrest, it was May 18th, 2009. I'm standing in front of a jury that day. And the jury, the 12 men and women in this case, they listened to a 6-day criminal trial of overwhelming evidence of my guilt. They've got me dead to rights. It's RICO. I'm going down as the boss of the organization, the ringleader. And at the end of that long 6-day trial, the jury deliberated for 10 minutes. As for this recording, we just saw that yesterday ex-President Trump got convicted of 34 felonies, and the jury took 2 days to figure that out. The jury was gone for 10 minutes, Molly. And then, I don't know how much Law and Order you watch, but if a jury's gone for 10 minutes, it means they smoked you.
Not good.
Oh, my God. They brought me back in the courtroom.
Well, and I think I heard you say, like, you were eating a sandwich, and all of a sudden the dudes are like, come on back in, and you're like,
yeah,
huh?
On the breaks, whenever they take you, because I was in jail the whole time. They have a little jail cell, and they bring you lunch. And so I was on the lunch break, and they brought me 2 bologna sandwiches. So I started taking a bite of the first bologna sandwich, and the bailiff says they're back. They've got an answer. They're ready for you. He's grinning from ear to ear because he knows the answer. He knows what it is.
Sure.
And I see his face, and I see how giddy he is, and my throat tightens. I can't even swallow the sandwich. I spit the sandwich out in the toilet. I throw the whole sandwich in the toilet and flush the sandwich down. I have no appetite, and they bring me back in the courtroom, and the judge reads the sentence out loud. Damon Joseph West, you are hereby sentenced to 65 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. And Molly, 65 years in Texas is a life sentence in Texas. The jury in 10 minutes gave me a life sentence. I earned it. They didn't give it to me. I earned it. I did everything they said I did, and the jury sentenced me to life in prison for that. And it took my breath away. I got to be honest with you. I knew I was going to get some time, but life for property crimes, it was way more than anybody expected. I don't think the prosecution believed that we'd get that a life sentence would come from that. But yeah, and obviously I didn't do the entire life sentence, right? I made parole, but yeah, it was hard.
And so does it start right away? How does that work, right? Like, are you just, boom, you're gone, handcuffed out the door?
So the bailiff and the sheriff are on me fast. It happens fast, like you see in the movies. They're handcuffing me. They're getting me out of the courtroom. I lock eyes with my mom on the way out. My mom and my dad, my family's there. They've been there for the whole 6 days, my parents, man. And I'm like, man, I lock eyes with my mom. I'm like, Mom, I'm sorry. And they whisk me out of there. They put me in this little side room. It's got a bulletproof glass. They told me to wait. A few minutes later, my mom and my dad were escorted in on the other side of the glass. They're going to give my parents one last visit with me before I go to prison. They feel sorry for my parents because I just got life, Molly. My dad can't talk. He's just in stunned disbelief that his son, who had all this promise, just got a life sentence in prison. So my mom does all the talking. Moms are special, Molly. And my mom, she's like, Damon, debts in life demand to be paid, and you just got hit with one hell of a bill from the state of Texas. But you did the things they said you did, so you have to go and pay that debt to Texas. But now you owe your father and I a debt too, because we gave you all the opportunities, love, and support to be anything in life. And that's how you repaid us. She said, so here's the debt you're going to pay to us. When you go to prison, you will not get in one of these white hate groups, one of these Aryan Brotherhood type of gangs, because you're scared because now you're the minority. She's like, you were never raised to be a racist. You're not starting that now. She said, you're not getting any tattoos while you're inside that prison. She said, no gangs, no tattoos. I mean, Molly, no ink. She said, you come back as the man that we raised or don't come back at all. And I mean, Molly, I am stunned. I don't know how I'm going to do this. And she's asked, she's like, do you understand the debt you're going to pay, Damon? I was like, yeah, I got it. But Molly, man, what do I know about? I'm a white middle-class guy in America. I don't know about, I don't even know anybody's been to prison at this point, man. I get back to my pod in Dallas County Jail. I got 2 months before the prison bus comes to get me, and I'm frantically asking everybody that's been to prison before, how am I going to survive? What am I going to do? And every guy I talk to, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, they're all saying the same thing. They're like, you got to get into a gang. You won't survive without a gang. They said the gang is going to be your family now. But there was this one guy, Molly, that was so different, this older black man named Muhammad. And Muhammad, he's what you call a career criminal. He's been in and out of prison his entire life. But he's super positive. You know, he's always smiling. And every morning he comes up and talks to me. So this one particular morning, he's about to bond out, and I'm about to go to prison on the prison bus. And he's like, you know, I've been watching how you're dealing with these knuckleheads and dummies that talk about you got to get into a gang. He said, just do not listen to them. He said, but let me tell you what prison's going to be like. And that's when he explains prison to me. And he's telling me that everything in prison is about race. Race runs the whole institution because the inmates want it to be about race. And he's telling me, when you walk in the door, you're fighting the white gangs. You survive the white gangs, now you fight the black gangs. If you survive that, you earn the right to walk alone. He's telling me things like you don't have to win all your fights, but you do have to fight all your fights. Some days you win, some days you lose. Get up and keep fighting. And then he shares with me this story, Molly. He's like, West, I want you to imagine prison as a pot of boiling water. He said, anything we put in the pot of boiling water will be changed by the heat and the pressure inside that pot. He said, I'm going to put 3 things in this pot of boiling water and watch how they change. A carrot, an egg, and a coffee bean. So here's where I first hear the story of the coffee bean, Molly. It's the summer of 2009 in a jail cell in Dallas County Jail. And he walks me through it. He said, if I put a carrot in the pot of boiling water, the carrot goes in hard but becomes soft. The egg in the same pot of boiling water goes in with that hard outer shell, that soft liquid inside. But prison, the water turned the inside hard. The heart becomes hardened. He said, if your heart becomes hardened, you don't come back as someone your parents recognize. But he told me the coffee bean in that same pot of boiling water changes the pot of boiling water into a pot of coffee. The smallest of the 3 things had the power to change the water around it because the power was inside the coffee bean. He said, just like the power is inside you. In fact, the last words he ever says to me, he's getting ready to bond out. The prison bus is getting ready to come get me. He had 4 words from me, Molly, on the way out the door. He said, be a coffee bean. And it was like, you know, be a coffee bean changed my entire life because it put the power back inside me. And if the power was inside me, it couldn't be the world around me. It's kind of like, you ever see Shawshank? The movie Shawshank?
Sure.
Oh, yeah. So Andy Dufresne, you know, Andy Dufresne survived that because he had Zihuatanejo on his mind the whole time. He could envision himself on that beach in Mexico, and that's how he survived that. And the coffee bean was my Zihuatanejo because now I had something to envision. I have 3 choices every day. The choice is mine, and no one can take that from me if I can keep that power inside me. And Molly, it was the right message at the right time. And I got to test it out, too, in one of the hottest pot of boiling water there is, a maximum security prison in the state of Texas. So, yeah, it was an incredible message at the right time.
And I just got to ask, I mean, do you stay and talk? I mean, have you talked to Muhammad? Or,
God, that's a great question,
you know?
Molly. You got right to the heart of it. So everybody wants to know about this, too, because when I get to the end of my story and you see that, you know, I became the coffee bean. Not only did I become the coffee bean, but the transformation that happened to me inside of that Texas prison, it wasn't just the, you know, transformation of Damon West. The lady from parole that interviews me that day, you know, she goes through my whole life story. We get to the part where I've transformed myself, and she's like, Mr. West, look, there's no doubt about the change you made to yourself. None of us doubt that. She said, but we're not here today to talk about the change you made to yourself. We're here to talk about the change you made to this prison. You changed the entire prison around you. One man was able to change this prison. So She said, my question for you is this, Mr. West, and think very hard about this answer because your life will depend on the answer.
Oh, wow.
She said, if you could be remembered for being anything in life, anything at all, she said, tell me what that would be, but give it to me in just one word. Go. Molly, I knew the answer to that question. I've been living that answer for 7 years inside the prison. I fired her answer back at her immediately, and I said, useful. I just want to be useful. Because, Molly, I think everybody wants to be useful, right? We all want to feel like we're useful. The human beings want two things, Molly, and I've lived in a prison. I can tell you from the gutter, the bottom of society, we want two things. We want to belong and we want to be loved. I didn't meet a single person inside that prison that didn't want those two things out of life. That's what we want. We want to belong and be loved. And I told the lady, I just want to be useful, and I can be useful inside this prison, as you've already seen, or I could be useful in the free world finding more coffee beans. And then November 16th, 2015, I walk out of a Texas prison. 7 years and 3 months, 18 days later, I walk out of a Texas prison. But I'm not a free man, Molly. I've got a little more time on this parole thing, right? I'm on parole till the year 2073. So as of this recording, I got about 49 more years. Hey, it was 58 when I walked out. So
sure, making progress.
Chipping away this thing one day at a time is what we say in AA. So,
Totally.
But right immediately when I got out of prison, one of the first things I want to do is find Muhammad. And so I go back to Dallas County Jail. I said, hey, I'm trying to find my friend Muhammad. But Muhammad's not his real name, Molly. It's his Muslim name. And when a person converts to Islam, they get rid of their real name. They adopt a Muslim name. Kind of like, remember Cassius Clay? Of course you do.
Sure.
Muhammad Ali. So this
Yeah.
Muhammad was no different. I don't know his name. So I got to hope that one day Muhammad finds me. And 7 years later, it was a couple years ago, I get a letter from an inmate in the Texas prison system. Molly, I get a lot of inmate mail these days, because to every man and woman that's incarcerated in American prisons, I am Andy Dufresne, because Andy Dufresne was hope inside that Shawshank prison. I am Andy, and I love my role as Andy, and I write everybody back. But this letter was so different. There was no return address, one sentence. It said, find James Lynn Baker, and you find Muhammad. Bam! There's the clue. I go back to Dallas, get a private investigator. The first thing we found was his criminal record, and it matched everything he told me, County. In and out of prison his entire life. Had him in County the same time I was there in 2009. This is my guy. This is my buddy. And all we got to do now, Molly, is just find his current address so I can go hug him. And I mean, I want to bring him along for the ride. This coffee bean thing has exploded at this point.
Totally. Right.
But we never found his current address because James Lynn Baker II, Muhammad, he died in Dallas, Texas on May 9th, 2017 of an opiate overdose. He's a drug addict, just like me, Molly, but he never got a program recovery. He never got the answers for his addiction, and he died in his addiction. So now that I know who the guy is, this is integrity, and I live a life of integrity now. And integrity requires you to do the right thing when no one else is watching. I told the PI, let's go find his family, because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him, and I've got an idea how to honor him. Molly, his family was incredible when I found him. His little sister is a woman named Von Seal Baker. Von Seal Baker is the very first Dallas Cowboy cheerleader ever. The first woman to, 1972.
Wow.
A black woman was the first Dallas Cowboy cheerleader ever.
Wow.
Yes. Another little sister of his named Vanessa, she's a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader for 8 years. In fact, Vanessa, I'm real good friends with the family now, but Vanessa is the only Dallas Cowboy cheerleader to ever get her master's degree delivered to her on the football field during a game. So she's got a little place in history with the cheerleaders. And but I found out more about the family when a private investigator finds out that their mother is a woman named Bertha Baker. And in 1948, Bertha Baker becomes the first licensed black daycare owner in Dallas history. She opens up the first black daycare in the home that he grew up in. In fact, the home that he grows up in is a landmark in Dallas. So this is like, I'm floored that this is my buddy and his family. And it kind of fits too, because I came from a great family, but I went astray, and drugs and addiction can do that to somebody. And he was just kind of on the same road I was. He never got help though. So I reach out to the family. He's got 3 living sisters, Visha, Von Seal, and Vanessa Baker. Called these ladies up one night. And I told them the story about the time that I met their brother in Dallas County Jail, the message that he gave me. And what I was able to do with that message, both in prison and out of prison. I told the sisters, I said, listen, I don't know what your feelings are about your brother and the choices that he made, but I know something about your brother you don't. Your brother impacted at least one person while he was on this planet, me. and now I'm going to impact the entire planet with this message he gave me. So I asked the sisters, Molly, I was like, what high school did y'all go to? Because when James and I were locked up together in county, he told me some things about his life. And one of the things he told me is that he grew up in the poorest, most urban, most inner city part of Dallas. And the sisters confirmed that when they told me the high school was Dallas Lincoln High School. And Molly, Dallas Lincoln, that's South Dallas. That's as inner city as you can get. So I told the sisters, I said, I got a plan. Here's what I want to do. Every year I'll put $10,000 into a trust for a scholarship in your brother's name. We'll call this thing the James Land Baker II Be a Coffee Bean Scholarship. And I would love for your family to pick that winner every year so that every year one little boy or one little girl that grows up in your old neighborhood goes to your old high school, they get a better chance at life through an education because these two guys met up in Dallas County Jail back in 2009. Molly, the sisters took me up on it. We've picked 2 winners now for the last 2 years each year.
So cool.
Yeah, a little girl in Dallas. Both years have been girls.
Love it.
Both these little girls are going to college, opportunity they wouldn't have otherwise. And, and this, Molly, it took 7 years to find blessing. That guy. But, I mean, it's like finding him. I found another family. I mean, I was at Dak Prescott's a business partner, a friend of mine. He has this big foundation for his charity. And they have a big gala every year. And 2 weeks ago was Dak's gala. And my date for the gala was Vanessa Baker. One of the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders from the 70s. Because Dak was just dying to meet her, too, and it just worked out. The timing of it worked out. And, you should have seen Vanessa Baker when she got to be around Dak. And C.D. Lamb, she was just, she's like, I got to get a picture with C.D.
Lighten up.
No, it's like, she's like, he's so pretty. I got to get a picture with him. It was just so neat to see this lady around these guys. But what was the best thing about it, though, Molly, is every one of these Dallas, because I've spoken to the Cowboys football team. These guys come up, and I tell them, this is the guy's sister that told me the story about the coffee bean. And every one of these guys looked her in the eyes and said, your brother's message has changed my life. And she's seeing this. She's feeling this. And she's tears in her eyes. Molly, it's incredible, man. It's wild.
Well, what a blessing. I mean, gosh, when you really think about that full circle moment, the impact that now they can have pouring into the school through you, with you, those are God winks. I call them God winks, right? I mean, 100%. So real quick, get me inside of prison, because I've heard you talk about this, and like I viscerally was feeling like tense, because I'm like, right? Yeah. Like, you made it. I mean, look, I'm looking at you. Some people are watching the video of this, but like, you would think, right? You'd have some bumps and scars, and geez, it's a tough place to survive.
Yeah, by design, prison is a punishment, right? And in prisons, we have to have prisons in society. You have to have prison. Certain people don't ever need to get out of prison too. One of the things that I did when I got out of prison, Molly, is I went back to school. I got a master's degree in criminal justice. I wanted people to take me more serious than just some ex-con that has this incredible experience and transformed himself. So I got a master's degree in criminal justice, and I became a professor at the University of Houston teaching a class called Prisons in America. The only professor on the planet to teach a prisons class at a university who lived in prison. Wow. But the experience I had in prison is what prompted that. Like, it opened my eyes up to a world I didn't even know existed, Molly. I walk into this place, and Muhammad was right. I mean, everything in there was about race, and the white gangs were first. And I tell people, for the first 2 months, I fought for my life. I probably got in 36 fights, and I lost 75% of my fights. But, I won. Really, I won all the fights because I showed up to the fight. Because that's what Muhammad said. You don't have to win those fights. You got to fight those fights.
Yeah.
Took 2 weeks to get through the white gangs, Molly. After that, fighting the black gangs. Just like Muhammad said it would be. 6 weeks into prison. It's a Monday morning. I get up. I'm still fighting the black gangs at this point, but I'm this close. I'm holding my fingers about an inch apart for all the people just listening. I'm about this close to being a broken man because prison's hard. It's violent. It's terrorizing. I'm still fighting the black gangs when I get up on that Monday morning. The only thing I haven't used to earn my respect inside that prison is my athletic ability. And look, I was a Division I athlete. God blessed me to be a tremendous athlete.
Yeah.
But man, that rec yard, Molly, where you play sports in the life sentence building, it's the most intimidating place I've ever seen because it's the most segregated place I've ever seen. Every sport in the rec yard was segregated by the color of your skin. It was like going back in time. Let me walk you through the rec yard, Molly. So you walk out there, There's a sand volleyball court. The sand volleyball court was for the whites and Hispanics. The handball walls, those big walls you see on the rec yard, those are handball walls. Yeah. All the races get to play handball. But if you wanted to play partners and double up in a game of handball, your doubles partner has to be the same skin color as you. You cannot mix the races. The weight stack, just like you see in prison movies. Everybody wants to push iron in prison. All the races can lift weights. But if you wanted someone to spot you or work out with you, your partner, your spotter, has to be the same skin color as you. You can't mix the races. You couldn't even sit down at a table in the chow hall, Molly, and eat a meal with people from a different race. Race is everything. And inmates run the whole institution in there. I know this. I knew sports was going to do it for me, Molly, because here's what I know about sports. I know that in America, sports is the great uniter. It's the one thing that brings people together in this country like nothing else can. I mean, think about it. Before there was Martin Luther King Jr., there was Jackie Robinson, right? Before you integrated lunch counters in the South, you integrated locker rooms. Heck, my dad was the first sports writer to break the color barriers in sports pages in Southeast Texas. I knew sports would do it for me, Molly, and it did. I go out there that day. I get myself in a game of basketball, and it's the most brutal basketball I've ever played because it's not even 5-on-5. It's 9-on-1, right? My own teammates don't want me out there. But I just keep showing up, Molly. They can't get rid of me. And I learned two things about adversity that week in the rec yard that I'll never forget. Adversity is never as bad as you think it's going to be. And you're always capable of way more than you think you are. Because so many times in life, we will allow overthinking to get in the way of overcoming. And that week in the rec yard, it was over. It stopped. They circled up around me, and they said, you don't have to worry about the blacks the rest of the time you're here, Wes. You're good to go with us. So 2 months, Molly, 2 months into prison. The violence is finally over. The threat to my physical safety is gone. But now I've got to get to work. And look, Molly, it was hard. Prison was – I underestimated just how hard it would be. One of the last conversations I had with Muhammad in county jail, I asked him this question. I said, hey, what am I going to find more of when I get to prison? And, man, he was one of the most intelligent men I've ever met. This is what he said, Molly. He said, you're going to find more eggs, West. And here's why you're going to find more eggs. The egg is a natural evolution of any human being in any difficult situation in life. We have a tendency to become eggs before we become anything else. He said, you're about to walk in one of the most difficult situations there is on earth. He said, the truth is, West, you'll probably become the egg too. Molly, he was right. He was right about everything. It was a conversation I was having with my first cellmate in prison. This is a guy I call Carlos, man. Carlos is about 5'4", a little Hispanic guy, a little bank robber from San Antonio. Okay. He was serving 99 years for a bunch of bank jobs he did. Good guy, though. Super nice guy. So the two can coexist, right? I mean, he could be a good guy and a bad bank robber at the same time. But he really was. And when you live with the lifers, you got to make friends somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, but I was struggling in the early days of prison. And I told Carlos, I said, man, I don't know if I can do it, man. I can't become a coffee bean. And he said, the reason why you can't become a coffee bean is because of the way you think. He said, your problem is you think prison's a punishment when you should be thinking prison is your opportunity. And he told me, this is your opportunity, man, to work on yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, become the best version of yourself possible. And I mean, and that night, at lights out, he peeks his head down from the top bunk and he said, hey, West, what are you prepared to do tomorrow with your opportunity? This little dude refused to call prison a punishment, Molly, and God puts him in a cell with me, right? This is like life, right?
Right.
God can use any messenger to get through to you. The messengers, though, they may not look like you or come from the same background as you. One of mine, he sends a black Muslim man from county jail. Another one, this little Hispanic bank robber serving life in my cell. God can use any messenger to get through to you, but you have to be receptive to all of his messengers to get all of his messages. And Molly, the next day when I woke up, it was a different prison because I started seeing it as an opportunity. I started seeing my Zihuatanejo, I started seeing the coffee bean becoming my life. And I started developing rules of being a coffee bean. I'd have positive body language. I'd serve other people everywhere I went. I'd stop worrying about the things I can't control and focus on the things I can, what I think, what I say, what I feel, what I do. I stopped letting my past control me. Because your past doesn't matter. Your past is your lesson. You learn from it. You teach other people with it, And I started becoming that coffee bean. And that's the thing that the parole board saw 7 years later, this guy that transformed himself inside of the biggest pot of boiling water there is. And That's really the power of the message, Molly, is like, if I could do it in there, then what's your excuse, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, totally. Let me ask you this. I mean, at sort of the risk of oversimplifying, you're in an environment, your metaphor is a coffee bean, which spreads and inspires others. It comes from the inside out. But you just rattled off some things that control the controllables. Where did that bubble up inside of you, the clarity to know how to be a coffee bean?
Oh my God, so many different things. Once I was aware and I was receiving the messages, Jon Gordon, our good friend Jon Gordon, he calls them downloads.
Totally. Love him.
He gets these downloads from God. So I started getting my downloads. I didn't know what a download was, so I talked to Jon, but I look back and like, these are downloads that I'm getting. One of the things I did, Molly, I got into a program recovery. I got to a 12-step program recovery, and I learned a lot about life. But at these meetings, these 12-step meetings, we always start off with this beautiful prayer called the Serenity Prayer. You ever heard the Serenity Prayer, Molly?
Oh,
yes, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I walk into this meeting on a Wednesday morning in prison, and the guy that brings the meeting in from the free world, we'll call him Ray. We'll protect his anonymity. Ray says, hey, Damon, today we're going to diagram the Serenity Prayer. And he has a chalkboard behind him. So he draws a line from one side of the chalkboard to the other. And he said, that line is God's line, Damon. Now, God's line is bigger than a chalkboard. It's like infinitely long. He said the first part of the prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. He said the things you cannot change, Damon, are on God's line. And every time you touch something on God's line, you hurt yourself or you hurt other people because you're not God. And God doesn't need your help doing his job. He's got this, right? He said, besides, you have your own line that God gives you. And he erases a little inch out of God's line. And he held his fingers up an inch apart for the entire room to see at that meeting. And he said, if God's line's infinitely long, there's your line. You got 1 inch of that big line. And he said that little 1 inch line was called humility. He said humility is being right-sized. And when we are right-sized, we can become useful again to other people. He said the second part of the prayer, the courage to change the things I can. He said the things you can change, Damon, are in your little 1 inch line. And there's 4 things that God will give you every day to work on in your life. These are the 4 things you have control over. And that's what he tells me. What you think, what you say, what you feel, and what you do. And he said if it's not one of those 4 things, you have 0 control over it. And he said the last part of the prayer was the most important part of the prayer is the wisdom to know the difference between the big line and your little line. Molly, I can't tell you how many times a day to this day in my life right now outside of prison that I come up to decisions and I walk away from it and say, that's not on my line. And I burn off. And it saved so much pain, hurt, suffering, and loss just by knowing what's mine to control and what's God's to control. And so, but it's a normal thing, right? We want to control these things around us.
Sure.
When things get tough, we want to control things. But the truth is you don't have control over a lot of things, but you have to focus on the things you can control. And, you know, being a coffee bean, all this stuff that I learned inside of a prison is applicable out here in the world. And that's how the message really, you know, took off, Molly. And
Yep, no question.
yeah.
Well, it's a powerful. When I think about, sadly, people in the world who feel a little stuck, right? Who feel like they're sort of in a little bit of quicksand, right? Maybe it's their job, maybe it's their boss, maybe it's. But you were really stuck, right? Like at some level, it's sort of, man. If to your point earlier, if that guy can get out of that, tell himself the right thing, shift his mindset. What did you tell yourself? You know, when you think about people in the world who are, I mean, certainly now in the world, as you deliver messages all over the world, hundreds of times a year as an incredible, I want to dig into that keynote speaker. What are the things that you would tell yourself to shift your mindset inside of a circumstance that was so hard? And what advice you have to people on how to do that? Because obviously, when you're looking at an audience, you know, at the Gaylord Ballroom in Texas, right? You're like, dude, let me tell you something. Right? Like, you think you're having a bad day? I've had some. You know what I mean? How do you advise people to shift their mindset? Because perspective is sort of obvious, right? But what else?
So this is a great question because it starts like you talk to yourself more than anybody else is ever going to talk to you, right? No, seriously, your voice is going to be the one your
100%.
ears hear more than anything in your mind.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you want to tell yourself the right things, the positive things. And that's where it starts. It starts off in the morning. It starts off when you wake up. And this buddy this buddy of mine named Lee Brower, he has this acronym. It's BIG, B-I-G, and it means begin in gratitude. Every day, Molly, I try to get up and I'm waking up in a dungeon, right? My feet hit concrete every single day. It's a dungeon. It's not a good place. But I would put myself in a good place, even inside that place. I'd think about the things that I'm grateful for in life, and I'd focus on those things. Because when you focus on the gratitude, it's hard to be suffering when you're focusing on the gratitude. I would force myself to be grateful for the things in life that were good. And I know that there's situations that people are listening to this, and they're in a bad place. And you don't have to be in a physical prison to be in prison. Molly, I meet more people out here in the free world who are locked up than I ever did when I served time in a real prison. Because more people are in prison by their thoughts and by their things than by steel bars and barbed wire and concrete combined. So, but I would encourage people to begin each day in gratitude and then find a source to tap into. We both talked a while ago, Molly, I'm a Christian, you're a Christian. That's our faith. That's what we believe in. But the truth is there's a lot of different faiths out there. You can be anything and believe in anything you want. You pick your higher power in life, but whatever you believe in, find something to believe in. It's a big universe out there. And I have this prayer that I started praying when I got into recovery in 2011. And whatever faith you are, you can have my prayer, but try this out every day. Every day, Molly, since 2011, I've woken up and I've asked Christ for two things. And remember, you can plug this into whatever faith. I get up in the morning and say, hey, God, put in front of me what you need me to do today for you. And let me recognize that when I see it, because I don't want to miss whatever that thing is. Amen. That's what I pray for, Molly. I don't have a list of things I think I want or need. I have this desire to find out what am I here for today, and let me meet that purpose. And I know that you need me to meet somebody or do something or help somebody, because if we're all thinking like that and praying for that, then we're all looking for ways to help other people. And one day you'll be the person that's coming in need, and you'll be the person that's being helped, because the same mindset, the same prayer is going out everywhere. So it was with those things like turning my life and my will over to God and becoming a coffee bean and look for ways to serve other people and not trying to get bogged down in the things I can't control that really shifted my mindset, my perspective. And perspective is important, Molly. It plays a huge role in everything.
I agree. Totally. Yeah. But and at some level, it was about being useful. And I'm curious, Damon. One of the things that and both of us, right, as athletes in college, I have seen so many athletes, and certainly even people that I've interviewed, who focus heavily on the outcome, on achieving something. And so sort of at some level that the traditional definition of drive is to pursue something and achieve a thing. But what sadly I also see is it can be a trigger for complacency after you achieve, if you aren't in fact pursuing something certainly bigger than yourself, but something every day in service of being useful. And so I'm curious, here you are in prison. You think potentially at some level, as you said, it's 65 years, AKA life in prison. Were you thinking about an outcome, or were you thinking more, I'm just going to be a coffee bean right now all day long wherever I am, and if it's here for the rest of my life, that's what it's going to be?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I fell in love with the process, right? I wake up every day and I love the process, because if I'm in the process, then I'm in the moment. And I learned about living in the moment. There was an Army Ranger that was serving life in there. He's in there for murder. But this Army Ranger, Molly, nothing bothered this guy. He was unfazed by prison. I'd watch this guy. He'd walk around. He's impervious to this crazy world around him. Not literal bullets, but bullets are flying everywhere inside of a max. In front,
sure.
It's a super max, right? And just to paint the picture of how hard this environment is, I didn't just go to prison. I went to the part of prison where the lifers go. It's the most hopeless part of prison there is, most dangerous part of prison. But this Army Ranger, nothing bothered Ranger. So one day I pull Ranger aside. I'm like, dude, I want what you've got. How do you do that?
Yeah.
So he's telling me. He said, well, when I went to Ranger school, I learned how to live in the moment. And what that means is, Damon, when you're living in the moment, you're there, you're focused on whatever task you're doing right now. You don't think about things that aren't going on right now in this moment. He said so many people around us are losing their minds inside here because they're thinking about a world out there they don't even live in anymore, the free world, right? Or they're thinking about their families out there or something going on they have no control over, but they're focused on that and they're missing what's here. He said, because if you live in the moment, you're going to be aware of two things that are going to be happening every single day: obstacles and opportunities. And he said, now, an obstacle that you see in a moment, you can sidestep it. You can walk over it. You see it's there. You can go around it. But if you ignore an obstacle, that obstacle can get bigger and bigger. And then one day you're going to look up, you got a wall in front of you to climb over. And, you know, he's looking at me. When I was in Dallas County Jail, I put on like 65 pounds of fat, Molly. I'm coming off this dope. I'm sleeping all the time. I'm depressed. I'm eating honey buns and ramen noodle soup for every meal. And my body is just absorbing these calories. And I put on like 65 pounds. I'm like 235 pounds when I'm talking to this guy. And he said, look at you, man. Look at the way you look right now. He's talking about, I'm obese. And he's like, there was a day that you looked in the mirror one day and you looked at that and you're like, oh man, I might need to cut back a little bit. I might need to do something. But you ignored the obstacle that day. And now this is a wall. To get all that off of you, now you got to climb a big wall. But you can do it. He said, but the other thing you have to be aware of today is for opportunities. And if you're aware, you live in the moment, opportunities you're going to see. Because if you miss an opportunity, it may never come back again. Opportunities don't always happen twice.
Sure.
But it's the obstacles and opportunities every day that I was looking out for. And that ranger was right. He was right about living in the moment. We have to live in the moment, Molly. You can't live in something that's going to happen tomorrow or the next day, because you have to be in the moment right now, because that's where life is happening. You got to be where life is happening.
Yeah. Well, but often I think what blocks somebody from stepping into new change, pushing themselves into potentially what is an opportunity, is fear. I can't imagine. I mean, fear had to have been surrounding you so often, like suffocating you like a hot blanket all day, every day. How did you navigate that fear? How do you coach people to navigate that fear? Because you got to step in. You and I both know this as athletes. I mean, you've got to step into the fear because you come out better on the other side. Get me inside. How did you navigate that fear every day for your life?
Yeah, look, some days, Molly, I'm not going to lie to you. When the first couple of months, there were days that I didn't leave my cell. I didn't go to chow hall to eat. I would just go without eating because I didn't want to fight that day. Fear, right? But here's what I learned. Fear is a liar. Fear tells you things that aren't real, makes you see things that aren't real, makes you believe things that aren't real. And fear can get inside of our head, and that becomes the only voice we hear. And I tell people a lot of times, man, don't listen to the voice inside your head. Talk to yourself. Don't listen to yourself, because sometimes when you're listening to yourself, you're hearing fear talking to you, and fear is a liar. One of the things I tell people all the time is that this little phrase that I picked up in prison: I do things I'm afraid of so I can do things I'm afraid of. The more I do things I'm afraid of, the more I'm willing to do things that are fearful to me. My little stepdaughter, Clara, she's 12 now, but I taught her how to ride a bike. And this is the lesson I'm telling her as we're trying to ride that bike. And she's eating it in her grandmother's driveway one day. Get up, Clara. Do things you're afraid of so you can do more things. And it's been kind of the repeating phrase that I tell her. But I tell that to other people too. Look, the last thing I wanted to do was go to prison and go against the grain. The easiest thing would have been to get into a gang, but I know that every day, at the end of the day, I've got to look at myself in the mirror, and the standard that I hold for me, if I don't meet that, that's going to be a bigger problem than the fear that I have to overcome. I'm not afraid of falling down, Molly. I'm not afraid of failing. I fail at so many things. Failure isn't really a defining thing. It's something we can learn from, right? 100%. I'm more fearful of being indifferent in life. I'm more fearful of being complacent in life. I'm more fearful of letting opportunities slip away because I wasn't able to meet that moment. And I don't know if that comes from being an athlete, because we're athletes, Molly. We're the people that want to do the base jumping. We're the risk takers. Sure. Athletes that step into the fear, like you said. We go after it, and maybe that's just part of our mindset. But I do believe everybody can be trained to have that mindset, but it's going to come from your experiences. this is something I applied in life too, Molly. Whenever I got out of prison, this is the stuff I still use. Like I said, it's a while ago, it's applicable everywhere. When I got out of prison, I knew I was sitting on this incredible story and this great message of the coffee bean because I just lived it. But the problem was, Molly, when I got out of prison, there was nowhere for me to share this story. I didn't have I found out real quick, you can't go knock on the door of a high school and say, I just got out of prison, I want to talk to your kids.
Right.
But they chased me down the street when I tried that. So
Sure.
But
sure.
I wanted to be good at this, and I had to get some reps in. And there weren't a lot of places for me to speak in those first 2 years. But in my parents' spare bedroom, because I lived with my parents the first 2 years out of prison, in my parents' spare bedroom, there was a vanity mirror in there. It happened to be there when I moved in. Every night for the first 2 years I was out of prison, I got in my presentation, my reps in front of that mirror. I mean, I didn't miss a night for 2 years. If I wasn't out speaking somewhere, which is most nights, I got in front of that mirror. I practiced what this presentation I do today was built inside that spare bedroom. And I got in my reps.
How old were you, Damon, then when you get back out and you're
40.
home? I want to.
Yeah.
You're 40. Okay, and you're living with your.
Oh my God, Molly! So check this out. So I'm 40 years old. I just got out of prison.
Right.
I'm on parole for the rest of my life. I got a job making just above minimum wage, and I live in my parents' spare bedroom.
Right.
I mean, which way you swipe on that guy on Tinder, right? Like, that would have been a hell of a dating profile.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And but no, I wasn't on the dating apps. I wasn't brave, not with a profile like that. It was
Yeah.
But I lived in prison, right? I had a lot of perspective, and I wasn't living in prison anymore. So I was grateful for all those things I had in life, the job, the minimum wage job, all that. But yeah, I was 40 years old when I walked out. So for the next 2 years, I'm practicing my presentation in front of a mirror, waiting for the right opportunity. And Molly, I really think the right opportunity is going to come from college football because I played Division I college football back in the 90s. But the problem was, this is 2017. It's been 20 years since I took a snap. These coaches don't know me. I don't know them.
Yeah.
But a buddy of mine in Houston calls me up. It's January 12th, 2017. I remember the date. I've been out of prison 14 months at this point. He said, Damon, get to Houston right now. Houston is 90 miles from Beaumont. He said, get to the Toyota Center in Houston right now. He said, it's the Bear Bryant Coach of the Year Award. They're going to name the best college football coach in America. He said, the 8 best coaches are in this room right now. I've got an extra press pass. I'll sneak you in. So, Molly, I drive the 90 miles from Beaumont to Houston. I practice my elevator pitch. What do I tell these coaches when I see them, right? He sneaks me in the back door of Toyota Center. There I am. Everybody's there, too, Molly. USC, Wisconsin, Penn State, PJ Fleck, they're all there. And I'm going around, I'm meeting these coaches, and I'm shaking their hands, and I'm giving my pitch of why they should bring me in to talk to their team. And every coach I meet that night slams a door in my face. They all say no. In 1 hour, I've been told no 7 times by the coaches in the room. There's only 8 coaches there, Molly. That's a no every 8 minutes.
I got one left.
I got one left. That's right. And I'm like, man, I'm in the corner of the Toyota Center, man. I'm licking my wounds. I'm feeling sorry for myself.
Oh,
and that voice in my head is talking to me. That fear is telling me, go home.
Stop. Go home.
What are you even doing here, Damon? And I'm literally, the voice is saying, what did you think they were going to say, Damon? You're an imposter. I think everybody's felt like an imposter before at some point. But Molly, I'm telling you, I quit listening to myself a long time ago, and I talked to myself. And that night, I'm pumping myself back up on the sidelines of the Toyota Center. And I'm like, Damon, you survived prison, dude. You survived something way worse than this, man. We got experiences we can tap into. This is nothing like prison. That last coach is going to tell you no to your face, and then you're going home. And Molly, the last coach, hardest guy to get to in the room. His team had just beat Alabama 2 nights before for the Natty, man. Everybody wants this guy's time. So I stalked Dabo Swinney around that room. And I looked like a crazy person, Molly. I'm hiding behind fake plants to ambush Dabo. I'm weaving in and out of people. I'm pushing people out of the way. Dabo sees me. Security has seen me too. They're about to throw me. They're about to chunk me out of the Toyota Center. But I get in front of Dabo. I get Dabo on best stuff for about 60 seconds, and I come up for air. And Dabo's like, "You got a card on you, man?" I gave him my card, and Dabo's like, "Hey, look, man, I'll check you out." He's gone. Looks like a no. Feels like a no. But I'm telling you, what I felt good about that night, Molly, was that no. That no meant that I left it all on the field. And that's another lesson from sports, you know? You give it your best effort.
Totally. Leave your guts
That's
out
it.
there.
Or like Muhammad said, you don't have to win all your fights. You got to fight all your fights. I mean, anybody's worked a sales job. You knock on every door. You make every call. That's when your day's over. Molly, I went home that night, slept like a baby. I forgot about that night. 4 months later, I get an email. It's the director of football operations at Clemson, a guy named Mike Dooley. Mike Dooley's email said, "Hey, Damon, Coach Sweeney met you at an award show in Houston. He'd love to have you come talk to his team. Do you have August 1st open?" Mike, I got every first open. I got nothing going on.
I got tomorrow and the next day and the first.
And that's what I told him, Molly. I was like, I could be there tomorrow. So August 1st, 2017, I go speak to the Clemson Tigers, the defending national champions of college football. And when I get done my presentation at night, Dabo's in my face, Molly. And Dabo's a high-energy guy, just like you see on TV.
Oh, yeah, dude. I love him. Yeah, he's been on the show.
He has? Oh, man.
He's been on. Yeah, he's the best.
He's the best.
Love him. The best.
Any podcast he's on is the best because he's got all these principles and all this stuff. He's gonna drop a master class on you.
Such a great person. Totally.
But Dabo's in my face that night. He's like, "Damon, it's the most incredible story I've ever heard. I've honestly never seen my players respond like that." He said, "Have you been to Alabama yet?" And I'm like, "No, Dabo, I've been to Clemson, but I hadn't been anywhere." He said, "Well, I just text Nick Saban. We'll see what happens with that." Molly, the next day, my flight lands in Houston for my trip to Clemson. I turn my phone on, voicemail, and a text message from the director of football operations at Clemson at Alabama. The message says this: "Hey, Damon, Dabo called Coach Saban. Coach Saban can't wait to hear your story. How does August 21st, 7:30 p.m. work for you?" Pretty good. I'll be in Tuscaloosa for that one. Just like that, Dabo Sweeney kicks open the biggest door to college football. Molly, Dabo doesn't stop there, man. Dabo opens up the entire Rolodex to me. Kirby Smart, Lincoln Riley, Chip Kelly, Lane Kiffin, Ryan Day. They're all calling my phone. "When are you coming to talk to my team?" But the real magic.
They want the secret sauce.
That's it. And coaches, man, you know how coaching is. They steal.
Oh,
they steal from
man.
everybody.
You got that guy.
Yeah.
I want that guy.
They steal from everybody.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, one of the first things Dabo said to me after my presentation that night, he said, "I'm stealing all your stuff." I said, "Man, you can have it, Dabo." But the real magic in my life happened 1 year after that presentation at Clemson, Molly. It was August of 2018. I get a phone call that day, and on the other end of my phone is this guy named Jon Gordon. Jon Gordon, the energy bus guy, is on my phone, and I'm like, he's one of the biggest motivational speakers and authors in America. And I'm like, 100%. "Dude, I know who you are. Right. How do you know who I am?" He said, "Dabo Sweeney." He said, "Damon, I just got done speaking to Clemson's football team. Dabo brings me to the office for 30 minutes, tells me your entire life story." And Jon says this before the pandemic, Molly. Jon said, "Damon, the world needs a coffee bean message, Damon. Let's deliver this message to the world." He said, "Will you write a book with me? We'll call it The Coffee Bean." The summer of 2019, Molly, exactly 10 years after I heard that story in a jail cell in Dallas County in 2009, the book, The Coffee Bean, comes out, takes the world by storm. It started off in America. It was on the bestseller list for like 4 to 6 weeks. And you've written books. You understand how hard it is to stay on a list that long.
Oh, yeah, no question.
Gets a global publishing deal attached to it. Now it gets reprinted in all these different languages in the world: Chinese, Spanish, Arabic, French, Italian, German, Korean, Vietnamese. And then in 2020, a global pandemic hits. The entire world becomes a pot of boiling water. And guess what message people are turning to now? The coffee bean. Well, Molly, my life took off like this. And for the people that are just listening, it's a vertical climb.
Yeah.
It goes from
Hockey
this
stick,
horizontal move to a vertical climb. I can't even explain to you how fast it happened in my life. But it all goes back to that one night in Houston, Texas, Molly. That night when I got 7 no's. I'm in the corner Toyota Center. And I'm licking my wounds and I'm feeling sorry for myself. And the voice in my head told me to leave. And I was this close. My fingers are an inch apart for everybody listening. I was this close to listening to the voice at night. But if I walk out the door that night, Molly, we're not having this conversation today. The world doesn't have the coffee bean message. So that's the whole point.
Yep.
You don't give up. You don't quit. You take your past experiences. You use that as your platform, your perspective to compare to what you're dealing with now. You're capable of way more than you think you are. Take your shots in life. Wayne Gretzky may have said it best. You miss 100% of the shots you do not take. You got to take your shots, Molly.
Amen. Amen. And, I would say too, yes. And I love Dabo. I think he is an incredible human being. And he was, it makes me think about Carlos leaning down to you going, man, and you thinking about making sure you're open to listen. But you prepared to catch the opportunities. And I would argue that you would have unlocked a door somewhere, somehow, at some point, that has led to where you are today. And Dabo couldn't have been a better guy to have unlocked it for you, and is an absolutely incredible human being. But you unlocked that door, man, too. You unlocked that door, man. So I'm imagining real quick, you now. So and this is how, by the way, for people, and my guys will cut this out a little bit, Damon, because I'm babbling, but this is how at some level, I think, when you think about the speaking circuit, if you will, this world that we both live in, it's the more you speak, the more you speak.
That's it.
I always tell people, the more you speak, the more you speak. And if you're good, your phone will ring.
Yeah.
If you're not so good, your phone will ring. I mean, it's just really to be that direct. And so I think at some level it's you are great at what you do. And before we went on, you told me, and this is a staggering statistic for people, you speak 200 times a year now all over the world.
I mean, I've done presentations in other countries. I'm on the road 25 days of the month, Molly. That's 300 days a year.
Man. Wow.
You know?
That is a staggering amount of keynotes. And are they to Fortune 500s, football teams, NFL teams, basketball, like companies, conferences, associations, all of it, I would imagine,
all
right?
of it, Molly. I mean, it's the Fortune 500s, Fortune 100, the United States Army. They've incorporated the coffee bean into their resilience training. Sports teams, every level. College. I mean, you know, one of the coolest relationships recently I built was with Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley brings me in to talk to his teams at UConn.
Cool.
But I mean, it's college basketball, college football, pro basketball. It's every kind of corporation you can imagine. It's school districts when they bring all their teachers back in for messaging at the beginning of the school year. They want to get on the coffee bean message. One of the biggest places I like to go into, Molly, is prisons, man. Whenever I get free time, I go into prison. They don't pay anything to go into a prison, but in that prison, though, is where I've got a lot of currency to spend with those people in prison because they want what I've got. And that's the thing about it.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's prison or a Fortune 100 or a sports team, when you want what the person on stage has, you'll listen. You'll do the things they're talking about. And I think that's one of the big things about the message that has propelled it. You hit the nail on the head. The more you speak, the more you speak. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you get people that reach out to you just like I do. They're, hey, I want to be a speaker. I want to do that. First of all, what value are you going to add to the audience you're about to talk to, right? Because it's all about that. If you're not going to add value to something, you're wasting everybody's time, yours and theirs. Mm-hmm. But if you can add value and you're willing to put in the reps, that's speaking world stuff. And I'm sure you understand this too. I mean, like you do it at the beginning. It's not paying you a bunch at the beginning. You're doing it because it's your something you're passionate about.
Totally.
And
Sure.
But you know, Molly, it's been incredible. I cannot believe this is my life. I tell my wife every day, I can't believe this is my life. You know, that I get to have this kind of impact.
Wow, what a blessing! What a blessing! When you reflect on your younger self now, what do you see?
It's a good question, Molly. What I look back on and see is a guy that was stuck in arrested development. I really think that so many people stop developing at an early age, be it 12, 14, 16. It's a adolescent mindset with bad belief systems, right? Our belief systems are so important, Molly, because our belief systems tell us how to act, how to behave, how to respond in every situation you're in. And if you have a good belief system, a good set of belief systems, you make good choices and good things happen. But when you have bad belief systems, you make bad choices. And the problem with belief systems is when you have a bad one, it's hard to change. Bad belief systems are, and the truth is, a bad belief system usually wins in the end. They're very difficult to change your belief system. And the thing about a belief system that I learned is, like, you look back on my past when I was younger, my belief systems for my entire life were formed by about the age 15 or 16 years old. And so are yours, by the way. Everybody's belief systems, you're pretty much formed right before you get out of high school. And I didn't have a good set of belief systems back then. I do now, but I wouldn't suggest anybody go the course I had to go through to figure out what my belief systems were and get them back on track, right? There is an easier way. And Nick Saban told me this one time when I talked to his team. He said, Damon, good players learn from their own mistakes. Great players learn from mistakes of other people. And so I encourage people to become great players and tap into these other people out there that have made the mistakes already so you don't have to.
Sure. Stay curious. Absolutely. And your story, I mean, I'm hearing ruffles that it's turning into your memoir's turning into a film.
Well, we're working on it. That's where Dak came in. Dak's got a company called D4K Productions. Dak read my book, The Change Agent, and reached out to me. He said, "Man, it's the best book I've ever read, and I want to help you turn this into a television series." So that's where the conversation is. We started this conversation out, and a writer strike happened, and then an actor strike happened, and so it's like Hollywood is upside down right now, Molly. So I don't know when this is going to happen, but here's what I know. Today, that's not on my line. You know, what's on my line is what's in front of me right now. The speaking business is the main thing I focus on, but I have no doubt at some point. I mean, this is, you know, that USA Today article calls it the modern day Shawshank Redemption.
Absolutely.
And I would argue that the only difference is that Andy was innocent. I was guilty, but it is. I get it. And I get the reference to Andy Dufresne. And I got it a lot when I was in prison. I get it from people now. The movie, The Shawshank Redemption, Molly, was about hope. And that's what it is at the core.
Sure.
And I didn't fully understand Shawshank, Molly, until I got out of prison. I was watching again. When I first saw it in 1994, 95, I was this punk kid that, you know, barely 20 years old, cocky college quarterback. I didn't understand Shawshank. But when I got out of prison, I was watching my dad one night. One of the first nights I was out of prison, we watched it. And I realized that Shawshank Redemption, it wasn't even about Andy Dufresne. Andy's not the main character of Shawshank. Andy is one of the characters. The movie, the title, the redemption part, is about the character of Red. It's Morgan Freeman's character story, not Andy's. I'll tell you why. Because Red, the narrator, when you meet him, Red's a dead man. He's got no hope. All those men in Shawshank were dead, Molly. They all had no hope. Brooks, remember Brooks? It took 50 years, but he makes it out. He makes parole. Brooks lasted 2 weeks in the free world. He hung himself. But he wrote a letter back to the boys of Shawshank, told him what he did and why he did it. And as Andy was reading that letter out to the boys of Shawshank Prison, every man in Shawshank Prison understood why Brooks did what he did, because they shared the same hopeless mindset, the same bad thinking. Red, our narrator, he explains it for us. He tells Andy, "I wouldn't make it out there either, Andy. I'm an institutional man now." Red even says the words out loud for all of us to understand fully. He said, "Andy, hope is a dangerous thing." But what did Andy tell Red, Molly? Andy told Red, get busy living or get busy dying. And by the end of the movie, when Red, our main character, he gets out, we don't know if Red's going to make it, right? Red walks by that pawn shop. All the guns are in the window. We don't know if he's going to make it. Red's even in the same room that Brooks was in. He sees Brooks was here, written up there on a knife. But Red makes it to that rock wall where Andy told him to go to, and he finds the letter that his buddy left him. And in that letter are those words that Andy said. He said, "Red, hope is a good thing." And when Red finally makes it to Zihuatanejo in that beach, in that last scene, and I challenge everybody to go back and watch the last scene of that movie. You don't have to watch the whole movie, but it's a great movie. Watch that last scene and listen to the dialogue of Red the character versus Red at the beginning. Every single sentence that Red says in the last clip of that movie starts off with the words, "I hope, Molly. I hope this. I hope for that." In fact, the last words of the entire movie, Red says, "I hope." He had hope again, Molly. That was a statement that he made. Hope is the thing that all of us must have. And that's what I think your story, my story, the great speakers out there that go out and share their story is they bring hope to the audience in front of them that they too can get past their challenges in life, that they too can be someone who looks in the mirror and says, "Hey, I left it all on the field that day." So that's what it's about. It's about hope.
Yeah. Amen. Wow. I mean, you are I have to, at some level, say, you're like mesmerizing. I mean, listening to you, and I'm sure you hear this in the 200 keynotes. I mean, I'm like, dang, it's been an hour and 10, like, we got to hop. But, I mean, it's like you suck people in with your story, your tone, your style, your humility. And, you know, I've been happily married for 25 years, Damon, but you're pretty easy on the eyes. I'm just saying.
So are you, Molly. So, no, I've been happily married for 5, but yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah. No, but I'm sure that doesn't hurt, but your message is so powerful. But Damon, I got to end with rapid fire. I got to fire off couple quick ones for you. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I love rapid fire. Let's go.
So, sorry, I just dropped my water. Thinking about the movie, thinking about the film, which, by the way, like, I get it. It's below the line or it's above the line. Is that what you say? It's above the line. Not on my line. Not on my line. And when we think about the film, who would play you?
That's a great question. You know, I think Mark Wahlberg would be kind of cool. You know, he's done the prison thing in real life before. I don't know. I think it's going to be a guy that you got to have to find somebody that they're going to have to show the younger version and the older version. It's going to have to kind of match up, right? So I don't know.
That'll be fun if you have an opportunity to be a part of that. What are you reading, watching, or listening to right now that's impacting you?
Oh my God. I love books and I love great stories. My favorite author is a guy named Nelson DeMille. He's a fictional writer, but I read a lot of his books in prison. So I just picked up a couple of his books that I have to catch up on, because when I got out of prison, I get out of the groove of reading all the time. So I got back more into the groove of reading. One of the things too, Molly, is that my publisher wants me to write another book, and the way I became a good writer, I believe, is by reading so many books. I mean, I think if you're a good reader, you become a better writer the more you read. There's a really good book that I read called Man's Search for Meaning by a guy named Viktor Frankl. Yeah. It's an incredible book. Pick it up. You're going through a tough time. This guy survived Auschwitz, and it's just an incredible book, an incredible journey. Watching, Molly, I don't even have cable inside my house. We have Netflix and Hulu and all that. My little stepdaughter watches Disney Plus and all that. But we removed cable back in 2018. It just became so toxic. And so I don't watch a lot of TV. I watch some documentaries and stuff like that from time to time, but I don't watch a lot of TV. But look, I'm always looking for stuff to pick up on and learn from. I'm ready for your book to come out in September, right?
Yeah, September 3rd.
That's it, girl. I know. I'm ready for that to come out.
Dynamic Drive. Yeah. So what's a new habit that's improved your life?
New habit that's improved my life. Molly, I quit making excuses about like being on the road all that time.
Yeah, that's
I try to stay in shape, and I try to work out. A new habit that I have is I've removed the word try from my vocabulary. I hate that word. I'm so sick of that word. Gosh. And so try means you're not going to do it. That's what try means. Yep. Y'all try to. No, you're not going to do it if you use the word try. So I've removed the word try, and I just do it. And so I'm on the road. I'm getting my workouts in one way or another, even if it's just doing push-ups in my hotel room. But I'm doing it. I'm not trying anymore. That's my new habit. I don't try. I do.
Damon, I got to just interlude and say, when I was a tennis player growing up, one of my coaches, one day he was telling me, get down on your forehand. You got to get down. You got to get lower. And I remember looking at him and respectfully, but I said, Coach, I'm trying, man. I'm trying. And he pulls me up to the net and looks at me and goes, don't ever say that word on this tennis court again.
Oh, my God.
He said, that word means nothing. He said, try means there's an outside chance you're going to fail. It means nothing. Yeah. Never say it again. And so anyway, it's so funny that you say that, because it's a word I agree with, right? Like when I hear people say, well, I'm going to try to pick up, it's like, are you going to do it or are you not going to do it? I mean, which one is it?
It's so wild.
I've used that. It's great for parenting too, by the way. It's a good little word.
This friend of mine named Randy Glenn, he lives in Abilene, Texas. He's got this company he owns called Extreme Exteriors. He was the one that shared that with me. He said, I've eliminated the word try. He heard me say it to him one day, kind of like your coach. Mm-hmm. He said, stop using that word. Why do you use that word? Yep. What does that word mean? So,
Yep, it's awesome. So the show's called Game Changer. So one last question. Who or what is a game changer who inspires you, and why?
I would say Jon Gordon is probably one of the bigger game changers in my life. He inspires me.
Totally.
Here's one of the reasons why. There's a lot of reasons why Jon Gordon inspires me and why I want to, Jon, first of all, is so freely given all the knowledge and all. Jon paved this road that I'm on a long time ago, and Jon brought me along for the ride. Jon hitched his wagon up to mine. Here's the thing about Jon that I don't think if you're listening to this and you're honest with yourself, ask yourself, if you're Jon Gordon at the apex of your career, you're one of the biggest authors and motivational speakers on the planet, you call up a guy that's been on parole for 3 years at this point, you don't know anything about him, and you invite him to write a book with you. You invite his world, his past, his crimes, everything that people see when you're an ex-con, right? I'm an ex-con, Molly. People aren't just dying to hang out with an ex-con, especially not 3 years out of prison. Right.
Sure.
But Jon Gordon picks up the phone and cold calls me that day and says, hey, we're writing a book together. Molly, I told Jon, you're Jon Gordon, you go write the book. You don't need me to write a big book. He said, Damon, God has already shown me what the cover of the book looks like, and your name's on it. Let's listen to God and write this book together. Jon, there may not be 2 or 3 more Jon Gordons in the world out there, but he's become a role model, a friend, someone to emulate in my life. And so, Jon's the guy for me.
Well, and Jon is a person who we both feel really blessed to know, and he's a guy that loves to support and lift up other people. And that is just such a gift and such a cool thing that he is so passionate about and does it. But what a gift. I have to tell you too, the Coffee Bean, it's a must read for everybody. Booking Damon West as a keynote speaker is a must do for everybody too. Damon, this is epic. Your story is incredible, and the way that you are showing up in the world and being, as you said, really and remarkably useful is incredible. Thanks so much for coming on.
Molly, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And if anybody wants to find me, it's damonwest.org. That's where you find me on my website. Book me to speak. People love stories, Molly, with certain elements. They love stories about overcoming the underdog journey. We love stories about that, overcoming adversity. We love sports stories in America. Sports is big, but we really love prison stories. And Molly, I got it all. I got all 3 elements in this story right here, and I'm a great storyteller. So, Molly, thanks for letting me come on. I've been watching you from afar. I mean, I love, I wanted to be a sports agent when I was growing up. You've done it. I want another hour to pick your brain. I don't have a podcast, but I'd like to call you and pick your brain. So when we get off, I need your number because I want to talk to you because this world of sports that you've navigated and came out of, and now the speaking world, it's incredible, Molly. You are incredible.
Well, you're kind. You are so kind, and I would be honored to do that. So we'll make that happen. What fun, man. And DamonWest.org. Great stuff all around. Thanks so much,
Thanks,
man.
Molly. I appreciate it.
What an unbelievable conversation with an incredible human being. Wow. I got to tell you, because it's fresh on my mind, this, in the rapid fire when he talked about the word try, boy, did that resonate with me, because that is a true story of my coach literally saying, don't ever say that word on this tennis court. And it's transcended, and it sounds like it's something that Damon has certainly adopted in his own life now, which is fantastic. But I think about some of the things he said, right? You don't have to win all the fights, but you have to fight all your fights. So interesting. And when you think about the layers of that comment, right? Fight all your fights, whether they're physically, mentally, relationally, emotionally, all of them. Our ability to step into those, step into the fear at some level and come out the other side of them is in part what he was saying is such a powerful thing for all of us to remember, because fear can keep us stuck. It can get us to a place of complacency. And it's sort of that analogy that comment that someone made to him in prison. You build that big old brick wall in front of you, and if you chip away at things along the way, that big brick wall can't form. That big brick wall can be complacency. And so I love how he framed that up, that if we chip away every day, there's no chance for that big brick wall to form, that big brick wall of complacency. And then you think about the coffee bean. Wow. Unbelievable metaphor, so powerful. And you think about how easy it would have been for him to become an egg, to harden his shell. But instead, not only has he been a coffee bean in prison and still going back in and talking to folks and inspiring people, but now out in the world in magical ways, keynoting all over the place as a coffee bean and inspiring so many people, giving them hope. As he said, he really is at some level, and I hope this film happens, the modern day Shawshank Redemption story. And I love his comment. I think about the comment around the line. It's not on my line. What a cool way to think about it. Coaches always talk about control the controllables, and I've talked about that a ton, but man, I think that's a really cool way to think about it from a faith perspective. It's not on my line. And a powerful way to then let it go. What a treat to have such a great person on, and a friend of both Jon Gordon's and a friend of both Jon Gordon and mine, a man who is certainly making an incredible impact on the world and those in it. I think one of the other really cool takeaways is that he's taken Muhammad, unlocks and figures out who I think another really cool story is the Muhammad story relative to his ability to circle back around and now use that for good with the 3 sisters, the school, sending at this point 2 girls to college who wouldn't have otherwise been able to go. Taking something that certainly was a negative and turning it into such an incredible positive through the message that he heard from Muhammad. And now, sorry, I got to jump on this call. What an incredible story of turning back to pour into Muhammad's sisters, to help them know that, yes, I'm sure that was incredibly challenging with their brother, but now what a cool full circle moment that they're able to take the story that Muhammad told Damon and in turn turn it into good and send these, so far, 2 girls to college. What an incredible human being who's inspiring so many all over the world.